Episode 8 after a holiday break. Mike Scow, what's up, dude?
I feel like 2021 completely deceived us and looked at 2020 and just said, "Hold my beer." It's it's been nuts, but I'm glad to just be here and have this show to lovingly embrace, get to talk to our friends and former colleagues and that. So it's a crazy start to 2021, but I'm glad we're here. I'm glad I get to see your face.
We've got another sports amigo to bring into the fold. She is born and raised in the Northeast, a Boston sports fan, if I'm not mistaken. Boston. We have terrible Boston accents, which Sarah can critique in just a second. Took off to the West Coast for college, Cal State Northridge. Outstanding broadcasting school, by the way. Really paid her dues, dude, to say the least. I mean, and then some. She has worked in sports, news, entertainment, reporter, anchor, host. We're going to talk a lot about the hosting she's done. It's a lot.
In baseball, in baseball, they would call this a 5-tool player.
Oh, but she's like a 7-tool player.
I was gonna say she's rocking every position on the field.
She rocks it. And we met around 2010. Sarah can also correct me on that if I'm wrong. City Cable 3. Big shout out to City Cable 3 in Torrance, California. A lot of great reporters have gone through. This guest is certainly not an exception. Nearly a decade of hustling and grinding up the ranks, and now she's a reporter at Spectrum News 1 in Los Angeles. That is right. She is working in LA as we speak, coming to us live from LA. Sarah Pilla. Sarah Pilla. Welcome to Sports Amigos. How you doing?
Thank you, you guys. Oh my God. Just kind of hearing you rattle all of the things that I've done. It's like, whoa, I have done a lot. I think sometimes when you're like in it, you sometimes like, you're so in it that you can't like pull out and see it. And here's my dog Champ. She's been with me from get-go. She is a little champ. And she'll probably, she already snuck over here to see what was going on. So.
Making Sports Amigos history, the first pup on Sports Amigos. So welcome, Champ.
Yes, I believe it's Boston. You want to get that like
Boston.
I'm for the record, I'm from Connecticut, so I'm not really like from Boston.
Well, I said Northeast, but you're a Boston fan, right?
For the most part, yeah. I'm a little, I'm probably what normal sports folk would think is like, not real because, yes, I love the Patriots.
Patriots on you for sure.
Yeah, right. Patriots for sure. Still love the Boston Red Sox. Nothing has changed, but from living out here for so long, I've also adopted the Dodgers. And so I feel like it's my firstborn and my secondborn. And when they met in the World Series, I thought that was going to be like the greatest thing ever. And it actually was like so freaking stressful. I never want two teams that I love to like meet ever again. It was the worst thing that could have ever happened because I had people from the East Coast like, you need to remember your roots. You're a traitor. And so like, most of the time, obviously like the Dodgers were down in that series and I wanted to kind of like root for the underdog to come back. And every time I was trying to root for the Dodgers, I felt like super guilty that I was rooting for the Red Sox. So like after the first game, I just wanted to like crawl under like a rock and like never surface again. So
yeah, does the Will Ferrell meme of him in the massage chair with a glass of wine just crying uncontrollably, do you relate to that then?
I wish I knew what that meme was. Oh my God.
Oh,
I feel like I'm so not in pop culture or something, but I imagine that has to be something like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Glass Case of Emotion? Is that what you're talking about from Anchorman?
No, it's a different movie. He's in like one of those massage chairs. He's trying to drink a glass of wine, but he's doing it so poorly he's basically shaking it out all over himself.
That might be SNL.
Right.
Yeah, like SNL. He drinks none of it.
Yeah, okay. Like couldn't post anything to social media. Like the minute I did, it was like death to me. So it was like that was just super tough. And then of course, getting to see the Dodgers win this year was cool, but weird because it's COVID and like you can't.
Like you potentially could have been at Dodger Stadium, potentially, right?
Because you know what, last year I was.
Okay, so you would have been there then. That's
I definitely could have been there. And that was, it's just like that moment of like, you get to obviously like stand on the field and like at Spectrum because we're the news side, and we have Sportsnet that covers the actual games and the players.
It's their beat, right?
It's their beat. So we kind of do more like the fan experience, super fans, like everything that you could think of, just not really covering like the players in the game. So it was, it's super cool to do that. It's gotten like a lot of cool opportunities. And, this year was just a little different. It was also an election year, as we know. So as like, the playoffs are going on, I was actually part of the political team. So I was like more dialed in with politics. And so it's just, man, year's been a whirlwind. And kind of like what you said, Mike, like, people might have thought like you turned the calendar page and 2021 was going to be this big sigh of relief, but it was like, don't hold your breath. And
not yet. We're not there yet. We'll get there eventually. Okay. So, a lot of the episodes, really every episode, what we've done is go through everyone's story, each guest's story. So let's begin your story going from the East Coast to the West Coast. What was the reason behind that? Was there family out here? Was it just you wanted to be in the LA area? And Northridge, like I said, is a great broadcasting school. So that worked out well. So what brought you to the West Coast initially? Now that we'll get to eventually how it's become full circle for you the last 10 years, being in LA now, but let's arriving first in the West Coast. What was the story behind that?
Yeah. So actually there's a pretty big story because growing up, broadcasting wasn't like anything I ever thought I would do or wanted to do. I was like hyper focused on being in the performing arts. So grew up dancing, in musical theater, wanted to be an actress. And I'll never forget like growing up on the East Coast and just reading things about actors in LA and reading famous people's stories. And I was like, Mom and Dad, this person got an agent and like that's what we got to do, and we got to move to LA. And my parents are like, you can do whatever you want when you're 18, but like we're not gonna like move to LA. And I think from like I don't know how old I was, but probably like middle school or like late elementary school, I was just like, I gotta get to LA.
So if you were like living closer to New York or living in LA at that point, you would have already been acting. You're saying like you would have at least been auditioning and trying to, right?
Well, so we lived not too far from New York. We were probably about like 2 hours from New York City. And I had done a couple things. My dad had driven me into New York on Saturdays, like in middle school, to take acting classes. I think I was like 11. I had gone to this acting camp in upstate New York, and that's like what really like solidified it. I was at this dance studio forever, like since I was 4 years old, and this guy came and auditioned a bunch of us, and I got into the camp. And from there I was like, man, this is what I got to do. So like we got to go to New York for acting classes, and like bless my parents, they really like helped me with that. But for whatever reason, New York wasn't like on my mind. And I don't know if it was the weather or like, it just seemed like film and TV was all LA. It wasn't New York City. And, I'd done, high school, I went to a regular high school, but the other half of the time I went to a performing arts high school. And so I really knew that like, that's what I wanted to do. And so when it came time to like look for colleges, I was only looking in LA. I mean, I auditioned to get into USC School of Theater, where they take like 20 people out of like 2,000 applicants.
Wow.
Oddly enough, I had applied to Cal State Northridge, which is also another full circle thing because I got into their theater program. And I didn't really have any family out here, although I did have a really good family friend who knew my family from Connecticut. She grew up there. Her name was Renee. She was friends with my grandmother. My mother actually, ironically, moved to LA for like a couple months when she was 18 to see if she wanted to live out here. Not anything acting related, but just to, I think, come out here. And she did end up moving back home. But, so we had Renee out here, and that's who I ultimately like moved into her house when I first got here, at least to like, help that transition. And then it was only there for maybe a couple months because I I actually started at Santa Monica College. So basically, you know, I apply to these schools, get into a few, don't get into some. And we had gotten some advice from one of Renee's friends who was a working actor, him and his wife. And they were like, you know, you should honestly just go to SMC, Santa Monica College, and then spend time like auditioning and then try to get into UCLA's School of Theater. And so that kind of became my goal, I guess you could say. Now, it was only about 4 years, I would say, that I was like pursuing acting out here. It was super tough, obviously, trying to learn to be an adult, never lived on my own, navigating this enormous city, you know, trying to work a little bit as well as like a waitress part-time. And like, it was really daunting. I don't think it was anything I could have ever anticipated, you know, as that young girl in Connecticut is like, oh, you just get an agent, you start booking gigs and you're good. Like, it's good. It was not
Just
that.
like that.
Yeah, you know, of course, this person I read like auditioned for one thing and is on a TV show. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it was a good dose of reality for me, but it really instilled a lot of fear in me. I was like, I don't know if like this is gonna be for me. This is a grind. And it was actually my dad who was like, you know, maybe you want to explore some other stuff. You know, broadcasting would be kind of cool. I mean, you love sports, you watch news, you know, people are on TV. And I was like, yeah. It was like kind of another moment of like, yeah.
And you're already a performer at that point. You're already comfortable talking in front of people, performing for people. So that was that definitely was a good fit. So you jump into broadcasting, and I mean, you did some great internships while in college, notably the one that we met at 2010. So it was 2010 that we met. Is that about right?
I think so. Yeah.
I did it for a year. I did it for about a whole year at City Cable 3 in Torrance.
So,
Shout out to Bonnie Prickett.
Yeah,
and,
Bonnie.
Jin Chun and all the great people that are still there's a lot of great people that we worked with that are still there. So let's fast forward now. You're in broadcasting mode, at least to the point where you're doing internships and you're finishing up your degree. You finish up your degree.
Yep.
Let's go there now. You finish your degree and you're continuing to hustle like I did for 2 years after I graduated. It took 2 years for me to go from finishing school to ending up in Abilene, Texas. So take us through your hustle from college to the first job.
Yeah. So, you know, I think what was really difficult for me was understanding that I was probably going to need to leave Los Angeles to get a job. That was like really hard for me to accept. It took a long time. I wanted to make it work here. I did not want to leave. So kind of like an actor, like you know, to some extent, these two industries really can blend together. So
I've compared it to acting a lot over the years in the sense that you're competing to be an entertainer. I mean, we're journalists, but we're still entertaining to be on camera.
Yeah, for sure. So I did a lot of auditioning in town, like a lot of the services that I used, like Actors Access, and there was a few other ones I did to try to get some hosting gigs. The first thing I ever did get before leaving was I got this, it's called the Race Across America. It's an ultra cycling event that happens every single year. It's drastically underreported. And it was one of the coolest things I ever did. Cyclists go from Oceanside, California, which is near San Diego, and they go all the way to Annapolis, Maryland. And some of these guys and gals, like, they need to get there in like 8 days. So they're like riding on their bikes for 20 hours a day with a support crew guiding them along the way. So I was part of a crew, a 3-person crew that followed some teams. So, and it was super cool stories. I mean, you had a team of 8 of breast cancer, just cancer survivors, or you had the Wounded Warriors. You know, they're just really cool stories and getting to see the country in a way that I had never seen it before. I had been across country a couple times, but this was all back roads, hanging out the side of a car with a camera, interviewing people, like totally video journalist stuff. You know, editing in the car as we're making our way across the US, doing like a package for the morning show, for the night show. I mean, it was a grind, but so cool. And I think after that experience, that was in 2012. I mean, man, trying to leave LA again, I was like, I could just be a freelance journalist. But luckily, I did have a lot of mentors from those internships who were like, you know what, freelance is awesome, but like you should really like try to get a job and like, work your way to that freelance position. So kind of like you, Brandon, it took me a good, I think it was 16 months from when I graduated, because I graduated in December of 2011. And it was in April of 2013, I got my first job, which was in San Angelo, Texas, not too far from you guys. And I had some bites before then with other stations, you'd get kind of close, be like the number 2, but just not quite get it. So that was the first job I got. Was super excited, but also kind of torn to leave LA. My dad flew out from Connecticut and like drove me all the way to Texas. And I'll never forget, like I was sleeping at one point and he pulls over to get some gas. And like I wake up and like, where are we? Like some guys coming out in overalls and missing teeth. And I'm like, you cannot leave me here. At all. I don't know where we were. We were close to San Angelo, but maybe still like, I don't know, a couple hours away. So
maybe might have been Abilene.
Okay. I would actually, I'm going to peg it. You were probably somewhere around
Sweetwater,
Odessa,
okay,
or Colorado City.
Yeah.
Because I'm not kidding you. Driving through some of those towns, you want to talk backwoods, like overalls and nothing else. That's the area.
Tiny towns. Yeah. Tiny towns. And just like everyone everyone looks different, acts different out there. I mean, living in a small town compared to a big city, it's night and day. So let's try to fast forward a little bit through San Angelo. So, and you weren't there very long. Like, was it a year?
It was like a little less than a year, actually.
A little less than a year. So, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, the longest sports job, at least the anchor reporter job that you had. So how did that, and I mean, you got to do some real cool stuff there. There's plenty to do sports wise in the big country and the San Angelo area. What was the biggest experience that you took away from that to help you to get to what the next one was?
Well, I absolutely loved Friday Night Football. I mean, obviously it is Texas, right? And there's nothing like it. Even though we got to do Friday Night Football games here in Southern California with City Cable 3, I mean, nothing really compares to how they treat high school football out there. It was an experience. It was super cool. We had a show every Friday. So, we'd be at whatever we thought the game of the week was. And then, we'd go into the show, right after the game wrapped. And that was probably the best experience for me. I really loved it. That's what I thought I wanted to do. But I think over time, as a sports reporter, I had to get really real with myself. Like, yes, I was a sports fan. Yes, I love sports, but did I really love sports? Like in a way that like I was willing to cover anything in sports and really do this for the long haul. And that's what I realized there, which I don't think is a bad thing, because you like figure out what it is you at least don't want to do, even if you don't know exactly what you want to do. And so I got a lot of great tape out of that place. I got a lot of good experience. But what I ultimately realized was I didn't want to cover sports for the rest of my life. And it was kind of killing my fandom. I'd come home after, working all day, and the last thing I wanted to do was like watch a game. It was like go to HBO to like watch a movie, and I don't know if anybody else has that experience, but that was,
I think everyone that still works in sports, whether you've been doing it for 2 years or 20 years, everyone to an extent feels that way. You need a break.
Yeah, you need a break. But I will say it was a great place to like, get the feet wet, as they say, and to be in a station. I had never worked in it was an NBC affiliate, anchoring on the weekends, getting to do stories, during the week. I will say Texas people are really friendly. They're really nice. I got to make a lot of really good relationships, but I think, it was tough living somewhere so desolate, even though San Angelo, I think, is like a population of 100,000. I mean, it's small, it's in the middle of nowhere. And I think part of me felt like, God, okay, this has been cool and all, but when do I get to leave? Like, when is this over? What's next?
Right. And so you leave and you basically go back to California and you kind of restart the grind and hustle that you were doing before you left to San Angelo. So let's let's summarize that, because you have done that's probably the most interesting part of your story, from in between San Angelo to eventually getting to LA. And gosh, Sarah, like, just getting to LA in itself, that is what people dream of doing. You know, getting to LA, New York, the big markets. So, but to say it was easy is such a lie, because you did some out there gigs in between San Angelo. So let's what would you? I mean, because there's a lot of things we could talk about. So I'll leave it up to you to the things that really tested you the most.
Yes.
I mean, you did everything from working as a host anchor to doing yoga stuff, hosting a yoga show. Man, it's an eclectic mix. So yeah, kind of summarize. And it was San Diego, right? Did you go straight pretty much from San Angelo to San Diego?
I didn't actually. So, it's funny. Right before I left for San Angelo, I had gotten a call from Time Warner, which is now Spectrum, where I work. So a lot of full circles in my life. So I had been, they had contacted me. I must have sent them my reel, and they were like, we want you to go on this screen test. And I was like, dude, I'm supposed to go to Texas like in a week, but I would love to stay in LA. So if we could do this screen test, like, that'd be amazing. We weren't able to make it work, but I stayed in touch with them. And I was
that's a big key for any young broadcasting students that may see this. Keeping contact is such a huge thing, even if it's for years and years and years.
You never know. And it's just good to build relationships and like keep up with people, even like just keep up with them. Don't even ask them for anything. Just stay in touch. And so I had kept in touch the whole time I was there. I was sending them my work. And then I was just really honest. At one point I was like, this place just isn't for me. And so at Time Warner, they were like, we can give you a part-time freelance position to do prep sports. At the time they had a channel, I think it was called SoCal 101.
Right.
And so I leave Texas, I come back to LA, and the first day I'm supposed to start there and go on my first story, they cut that department, and I'm out of a part-time freelance job.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, I literally just moved back here and I don't have anything. And so that was tough too. I had some contacts in the live award show production world. So I was lucky enough to get on the Oscars with them working in production.
So you're dipping your toes again into entertainment.
Exactly. Right. I had worked most of 2014 in the production world doing live event production. Most of those were award shows, the Billboards, the Kids' Choice Awards, you name it. In the summer of 2014, I got a gig at E! Where I was working on a show called Untold with Maria Menounos. That doesn't exist anymore, but she's such an idol of mine. I loved Maria. And so it was cool to work on that show and get to know her a little bit. And throughout this time, I was like, I know what I need to do. It's not production. I need to get back in front of this camera. And I had gotten an offer from a station in Bakersfield. Ultimately, that fell through, mainly on my part, because I just didn't know that I wanted to live in Bakersfield. I didn't know that I wanted to do that. Then
that's like the San Angelo of California.
Exactly. And it was just like, I don't know. And so sometime in that year, I was just like watching the news a ton, because I was like, now I'm working in the news, now I'm going into news, done with sports. And it's funny, I saw this channel tucked in between all the cable news channels. It was called One American News. It's a lot more popular now. It wasn't so much then. And I was like, who are these kids? Like,
Mike, have you heard of that one?
I don't think I have, actually. No.
Okay. Well, we'll get there. I'm almost there. I know. It's a long ass story.
No,
but
you're good. That's why we're having you on. We want to hear it. Yeah.
So I see that there's this channel. It looks like a bunch of young kids. Turns out it's in San Diego. And so I get on LinkedIn and I'm trying to connect with people that work there. And this girl, Bree Teely, her and I are really good friends to this day. I contacted her on LinkedIn. She gave me the number, like the contact to, OAN. Send them my stuff, get a call from them, go down to San Diego. This is like around November, December of 2014. And I do a screen test as a news anchor, get the job on the spot. They tell me I can start whenever I want. So I get to
Nailed it.
Get to go home for the holidays, start in January of 2015, moving down to San Diego. Like, oh my God, like who's going to complain about going to San Diego? and so that's what I did. I mean, I'm not, for anybody that watches this, like 2014, that was a struggle because here I am thinking I'm back in LA. I'm going to have this job on camera. Yes, it's part-time freelance, but I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm going to somehow get that to wherever else I want to be or turn that into full-time. And to have that thing crumble before I really even like had it, like the first day, I mean, that was super tough. It was just a really hard year, but to kind of keep grinding and moving forward and doing everything I could and continuing to connect with people who I could. So I finally end up in San Diego in 2015, where now I'm a news anchor for this national channel that it was really straightforward news. I don't watch the channel any longer. I don't even have it on my provider, but we anchored, hour-long shows, a few of them a day. And it was just talking about all the headlines, like across the country, a little bit around the world. It always had a little bit of a right-leaning bend, at least with the opinion shows. But, I kind of knew that there was something up with this channel. It was a little strange. And I was with that station the entire time of the 2016 election. So from the moment that Trump descended the escalator, watching all of his rallies and going through that election cycle with Hillary Clinton. I mean, I think about what we just went through now. It seemed like so much back then too. But that station always wanted to be kind of this rival to Fox News. It wanted to be this right-wing station. And that's what it ultimately came to be. And, I'm whatever people's, views are of politics, like I'm totally like fine with that. But for me as a journalist, like I just couldn't sit in that chair and give like bent headlines to people, because that's kind of what it turned into. And it just didn't feel good, like in my soul. Like it really was really difficult to work there. Now, while I was also working there, I had always been into yoga. I'd always been a yoga practitioner. And I started going to Core Power really regularly down in San Diego. And then I started taking yoga teacher training and really fell in love with the fact of teaching yoga to people as well as continuing to take yoga. So while I was at One America, I was at some point teaching, a few classes a week. And I kind of took another risk again, where in 2017, like in the late spring, early summer, decided to part ways with OAN. And I was going to teach yoga full time and just kind of figure it out of what my next gig was. Teaching yoga full time was also really tough. It's not easy to teach 16 classes a week and barely make ends meet and like give all this energy. So kind of at the end of 2017, about November, I got a job with this production company called Ignite Now Media, and they were awesome. It wasn't a full-time gig, but it was another one of these like part-time freelance, but I got to host on two different shows. One was a Lifestyles of San Diego show. Another was called The American Dream, which was more geared towards real estate. And that was an in-studio show, whereas Lifestyles was like, out and about in San Diego. So like really cool gigs, working for a cool company. And I loved it. But it was part-time. And I started to just sense that like, I don't know how long this is going to last for. Like, I got to find something else. And I had tried knocking on the doors of the San Diego stations. Was really tough to get into any of those places. And I'm sure, both of you probably know, like San Diego is just one of those destinations. Like people are not leaving San Diego once they get there.
It's like Brian Keating said, Mike, people have to die for jobs to open.
He's in Oklahoma City, and it's for whatever reason, he's from OKC. And, I've talked to people who look at San Diego the exact same way that you're describing it.
And, I always knew I wanted to get back to LA. And it just so happened, like, as I'm like really searching and I'm on TV jobs, Brandon, this is like 2018. I don't even know if people look at TV jobs anymore.
Shout out to TV. Oh, it's got to still be going. I should have
before we started. Right?
It's got to still be going. It's been the best in the biz for a long time when it comes to post, like nationwide, every affiliate throughout the country posting each and every job for anchors, reporters, production.
There it is. It's still there. It's still there.
Boom.
Yeah. That thing's
do you still have a subscription?
I
trying
don't
to tell us
know.
something?
No, I let it lapse. I just checked to see if it was still up. And I'm not kidding you. This thing looks the exact same it did when I was applying for jobs in 2008.
Don't try to fix something that's not broken.
Yeah,
It had the format that worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were rocking TV jobs pretty hard. This is what now, 2017?
2018, like early 2018.
Okay.
You know, in addition to that, I'm looking on Indeed and all sorts of stuff. And then like one day I see Spectrum News and I'm seeing like 30 something jobs open. And I'm like, this is interesting. This is an also good know.
What's up with that?
Yeah. So initially, I did not want to apply to be an MMJ. I was like, I'm done with that. I'll apply for the anchor stuff. And so I do, and I'm not hearing anything. And one of my mentors who I knew from Fox Sports Net, Celeste Gehring, she hits me up one day and is like, I really think you should apply for this MMJ job. There's like 30 openings. Like you should just go for it. I know you don't really want to do it, but you should just do it because you'll at least be where you want to be.
What do you have to lose? Just apply.
Exactly. So I apply. She also gives my stuff to someone she knows because a lot of people in the sports world, you know, whether they worked at Fox or wherever, or some of them are now at Spectrum. Just so happens one of the recruiters I had worked with 4 years prior. She had contacted me about a job within Spectrum back when it was Time Warner, about a sports job in Austin. I don't remember exactly when that was, but probably when I was like in San Angelo. And so I just kind of hit her up to be like, hey, remember me? We talked before. Now I'm like trying to get in here. And Celeste got it on the other end. And sure enough, the recruiter calls me. They want me to do like a package, put one together. So I go do that. I remember it being a super struggle because it had been a while since I was like shooting and editing and all that. It felt like it took like, 25 hours to put a package together. I was like, oh my God, like what am I even getting myself into? But you know what? They called me again and I just kept going through the hiring process. It was like 4 interviews or something.
Wow.
And
okay. So let's pause real quick and stay on that for a second, because Mike and I, this is something we haven't talked about with any of the guests up to this point. So Mike and I, we had the good fortune. I think some of it's good fortune, some of it's loyalty, that we've only been at a couple of stations throughout our career. We had like a long stretch at each career, so we haven't been through a ton of interviews, so to speak, in the TV world.
Yep.
So yeah, let's dig into that a little bit, because whether you have an agent or not, do you have an agent? I assume you have an agent now. You don't? Oh, you work in LA, you don't have an agent? You're bossing it. Yeah, okay, so even more so, you don't have an agent. You're doing all the phone calls, you're doing all the emails, you're doing every bit of communication, which for anyone that hasn't been through that, I mean, a lot of people go through interviews, but like in the TV world, I feel like there's a teeny bit more stress, because you could one day pack your bags and move to San Angelo, Abilene, Eugene, like Mike did, Albuquerque now where I live. This business can take you all over the place. So, and you're living in San Diego, trying to get back to LA. Yep. And you're going through this, which sounds like such a brutal interview process. Can you just speak to that a little bit more? And it must have been tough.
Yeah, because you know what, too, you want it so bad, but you don't want to, like, in a way, you want to think like you're not getting it, or you know what I mean? You just don't want to like jump the gun that you've got it, because you
get your hopes up.
You don't have it yet. But
and plus, you don't have an agent that can do all this heavy lifting that you're doing. You're doing everything. And
I mean, there are people at my station who, like, once I got the job and it's talking to them, oh, my agent. And I'm like, oh my God. Like,
because that's the norm. You're a rare breed to be in LA.
So. I guess
you are. You really are.
So, it's first, it's that one recruiter, put a package together, submit that. And then it moves to like the HR manager. It was like 2 different interviews with her, going through obviously like my past in TV. them asking you questions of things like, can you tell us about a time that was like really difficult in your career but you like, like you persevered or something, or the only thing that was coming to mind was like working at One America and like how stressful it was to like kind of have to give an agenda that like wasn't mine and at odds with like the CEO of the company. But
were you afraid having that on your resume
yeah,
like made you had a negative were you worried there was a negative effect that
absolutely.
it could have had?
I did. And I actually thought like when I was trying to get other jobs at other stations in San Diego, I really thought that working at One America was the reason like why they didn't even want to give me the time of day. Like that's a fake station.
That's
That's
tough.
not a real thing. Oh, she was an anchor there. She never reported there. So I felt like I had to do a lot to like convince people like, no, I have what it takes. I can do it. Please forgive me for, whatever you think of that station. I left there. So, you have that you're talking through. And then of course you have all like the negotiating side, the salary, the benefits. Like that's where I think an agent does really like come into play, because here I am like trying to get the best that I can possibly get, but don't want to lose it. And like not really in this position before, because for what it's worth, the other stations that I was at, there wasn't really a lot of that. It was like, here's what it is, take it or leave it. And I learned that with the Bakersfield thing, because they offered me, like whatever hourly. And I was like, I want this. And they were just like, no, we're going to rescind the offer. So there's all this kind of stuff in my head of like, I'm kind of walking through this somewhat blindly, trying to look at stuff on YouTube of like negotiating and like the do's and don'ts. And so that was pretty rough. So I get through 2 things with the HR manager. So I think that's like about 3 interviews. And then I have an interview with the VP of news, which is Cater Lee, who's amazing. And, so she's asking me stuff, but she's now focused on the time I was at the production company Ignite Now Media, because she's like, well, yes, you're anchoring and you're hosting, but that was kind of pay for play, right? Like they had real estate agents on there that like paid to be on the show. And so it's journalism, but it's not really. And so it's like, oh my God, dude, like trying to convince these people that like, no, I'm a journalist. Yes, I work there. Yes, I'm doing the same things. I'm asking questions. You know what I mean? I'm learning about real estate. I'm doing my research. I can apply everything that I've done in my career to this job. Like, just give me a shot.
You really had to sell yourself. I mean, not only because you didn't have an agent, because of your resume. Your resume was extremely unconventional, for sure.
Exactly. Really unconventional. And I think, they thought like they just want to be sure, I think, that like, that you are for real, that you will, do what's asked of you. You can like, step up to the plate when you need to. But, ultimately, like we did have a good conversation. I mean, we must have, because after that, I got the offer. And then we did a round of negotiating. And, I started the job. That was probably about July and August or something. June, July, August. I mean, it was
2018.
Yeah, it was also a long process too. I mean, you're talking about months that you're interviewing for this job.
Crazy.
And then, so I remember signing the contract sometime in August. And
how long of a commitment did you make in that contract?
So I had a 2-year contract with an option for a 3rd year, and I'm in the option year right now. And man, you think about the importance of contracts, which was something, when I worked in San Angelo and I wanted to get out, it was like, man, I can't believe I have this contract. Like, I got to try to break this. And then I went to One America. They don't even do contracts, which I was like, oh, that's a good thing. But
which ended up being a good thing. Yeah.
Which it did. But then you think about this past year of 2020 and like how important a contract could be for like job security. I mean, I'm sure there's something in the contract where they maybe could have gotten rid of me if they wanted to, but to some extent, like it is that security and tough times this year for everybody. So I'm in the option year, and that'll be up in September. And, I'm certainly hoping there'll be, more rounds of conversations about, signing another 2-year deal or something, because I definitely want to stay with this company. I definitely want to stay here in LA. So, and this job was by far the most challenging job I've ever had. I'm doing more things than I've ever done in any job as a multimedia journalist, enterprise reporting, finding my stories, setting them up, shooting, editing, the whole thing, live shots. And yeah, I've done live shots before, of course, but this just is at another level, and you're in LA, and it's so huge. And so I just feel like the growth I've had has been really good, and I'm not done growing there. I think sometimes in jobs like One America, there were times I was really bored. It was just like, yeah, we read from the prompter. You get better at reading it. Sure.
It was almost the same thing every day, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, this job, they've given me lots of opportunities to fill an anchor. I just filled it on the morning show last week.
Awesome.
During the presidential race, I got to go to Utah for the vice presidential debate. I didn't actually get to go inside the debate, but I did 20 live shots 2 days straight. So 40 live shots for the entire network. So just getting really good opportunities, because I think we're on a cable network that we're able to try things that maybe you couldn't do at some of the conventional affiliates. So just, I got to be in our studio for election night, doing all the California propositions. So just a lot of really good opportunities. And I think sometimes I'm ready to move on when you've kind of tapped into everything you can. There's nothing else left to learn. And I just don't feel that way here. I mean, I'm learning constantly, and it's just such a great learning ground, I would say.
So given your experience, everything you've added to sort of your toolbox, as lengthy as your resume is now, Brandon and I being from the side of, we stayed with our stations for longer periods of time, longer than some journalists probably would, because I was with K-Texas in my first position for 6 years, and then almost 4 years. Now I did move up within the station, so it was weekend anchor, then weekend sports, and then sports director, but you stayed within the station. That's not too terribly common.
Right.
So I'm curious if there's somebody who wants to take the path of, multiple places, staying for a year and a half, 2 years or something. How would you impart wisdom on the journalists who are trying to make that decision as they land their first job or go from job one to job two? How would you sort of help them navigate those waters?
Or would you not recommend it at all?
It's a good question, because, it is a little rare now. And I don't know if it's part and parcel to the generation of the short attention span. So it's
I want it now. I want
it now. What's next?
Now. Right.
The new shiny object. And I even fall victim to that sometimes. It's what's next? Okay, I did this, I'm ready for something else. But I don't know that somebody has to say 6 years, but I do think that that's extremely valuable, though, because I think, Mike, you've probably learned a lot in those 6 years, and you were able to move up into different positions. It wasn't like you were just at the same position that you started at. Although if that is somebody's trajectory and they like that, I mean, it's more power to them. But I think there is something to be said for kind of digging your heels in and really just getting better and just getting more experience. I mean, it's you have to do things. You have to get these repetitions over and over and over and over again to really start to hone in and find your voice and feel like you have your job down. I know with Spectrum, it took me a solid year, I kid you not, to really feel comfortable in my job, in my position, because it was so much. And you think about, I think too, like a lot of people who start, like they're probably going to be multimedia journalists. And that's a lot of different skills. I would find it really rare to find somebody who excels in every single one of those skills, because it's a lot. And so in order to get better and to be ready, to be really ready to move on to the next thing, like you need time to polish, you need time to make mistakes, you need time to like figure out what works, what doesn't. Take time to build sources. That's definitely been one of the big things in my job personally. Like, I'm not sure how other stations work, but like us at Spectrum, like we've got to like build and cultivate sources. And yeah, you might work with somebody once, but like there's something to be said about also getting to work with that person over a year, over 2 years. Like I'm not even at 3 full years yet. And there's still new people I'm meeting. There's old people that I'm working with. Not old people, but you know what I mean? Like people who I've been working with since the start. And I just think like to really hone your craft, like it takes time. You got to just breathe, and you got to just move through it. Like everything in life is temporary, whether it's going to be a year or 6 years or 20 years. It's eventually going to be over. So it's like, just try to really like enjoy the ride. And what can you learn? I think like it's time to move on when there really is nothing left to learn. There's nowhere else in the company for you to go. Of course, there's going to be exceptions. Some people are going to be at a station and they're like, you know what, this really doesn't work for me. This is a toxic relationship. This is a toxic station. I don't feel good here. And like, then that's a separate conversation. That's like a mental health, like, you want to feel good going to your job. But I think for the most part, it's like you really have to like hone your skills, and that's gonna take time. And you just gotta move through it. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, you totally did. You hit a lot of great points professionally. I think there's something to be said for staying somewhere for your just personal. You mentioned mental health, and that's so important. But for me, I got really lucky that in Abilene, I knew from the first day working with that dude over there that I was going to have a blast and I was going to learn, and I liked him. That's not always the case in this and in any job, not just
Absolutely.
broadcasting. So I got really lucky that I found someone that I was super down to just like stay there with as long as it wasn't. I got to be honest, like arriving in Abilene, I didn't go to Abilene thinking like, all right, well, this is where I'm going to start. And then I'm eventually going to be on Sports Center. I just knew that like I wanted that job, and I had no idea where it was going to take me next. So what I was trying to get to though is on a personal level. So Mike, he mentioned he was there for 6 years. He met his eventual wife. I was in South Texas for almost 4 years. I met my eventual fiance. There is something also to be said bouncing around. If you don't have someone already with you, a partner that is down to jump around, that could take a toll too, being by yourself. Now I know you got Champ, and Champ's been there with you from day one.
Yeah, Champ.
That's awesome.
Girl.
Champ's the MVP. Champ's been your number one. How much has bouncing around affected you personally on your personal life? Has it had negative effects? Has it been something that's actually made it easier for you to just move around and not really worry about that?
Yeah. I do want to say before I go into it, I do think it's important that although our careers are really important, right? Like it's not all of what or who we are. Like life is a balance, and like everybody deserves to have a life outside of their career. And so for me, it was very difficult with relationships. I had a boyfriend in LA when I got the job in San Angelo. And we did like long distance, but like that also didn't really work. I never really found someone who was down to move. Like that was a difficult thing. I know that there's some people that's worked out, but for me, in my experience, at least in those first couple of jobs, people were not down to move. So I was with somebody when I moved to San Angelo. And then when I came back, I thought we were going to be together. We weren't. So it was like, lost the job, lost the boyfriend. Like I was like square one back in LA. And when I got to San Diego, I did start dating somebody there, and we had gotten pretty serious. Now I had wanted to move to LA. He wanted to stay in San Diego. And that was always going to be this point of tension. And so for a long time, I was like, okay, I'll try to stay in San Diego. Even though there was like this voice, this thing inside of me that was like, no, like you need to get to LA, or you like, if there's not going to be a job here in San Diego, you got to give it some time. But at some point it's like, you got to start looking somewhere else if you still want to do this. And to me, I really wanted to do it. And to my boyfriend, who was probably the most serious guy up until the point now, who I was with, we had talked about marriage and moving forward with our lives, but it was like ultimately I did not feel supported in the career because he was so dead set on staying in San Diego. And even though LA and San Diego aren't that far, I know people do long distance, like that was never going to be an option.
Yeah, but the 5 freeway makes it feel like you're across the country.
Yeah, exactly. Take a I know it's only like 120 miles.
It qualifies as long distance in my book.
It's definitely long distance. And it was tough because I had gotten the job at Spectrum that could have been like, it was like everything to me. It was like finally getting the gig in LA and wanting to be excited, but at the same time it was like losing the relationship and this person that I loved. It was such a weird place to be. August and September of 2018. It was just like, I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was a terrible time. And it was like the best of times and the worst of times. It's so Charles Dickens, right? Like it really was. I got my dream job and I lost my guy, but you know what? He really wasn't my dream guy. And, I met my dream guy actually in February, who I'm with now. And
right before Corona.
Right before Corona. God, I feel like it was
timing, man.
Intervention.
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. And so the relationship stuff has been tough. I mean, if you find someone that wants to move around the country with you, like honestly, more power to you. But I had just run into a lot of barriers with guys that I was with. And, I think part of that falls on me, where it was like, maybe I wasn't adamant in the beginning. It was just like, well, we'll see where this goes. And, we'll just deal with it, when we need to. And then like, you need to deal with it. And,
which a lot of people would have done in your position anyway. Or you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. You weren't sure what was going to happen. So, yeah. So gosh, you start fresh personally and professionally coming to LA. And I can only imagine your job was the best distraction ever, jumping into the most stressful job you've ever had in your life. Man. And you've covered, you touched on it, so many different things in LA: enterprise, entertainment business, some sports stuff, some news stuff.
And
yeah,
it's hard to, then and then the pandemic, right? I mean, like our lives haven't been the same ever since. And I'm not going to lie, like it's been a grind. I mean, it's like we've never been more important than to our viewers, to let them know what is going on, right? But at the same time, it's like it's never let up. And I guess 2021 is going to be the same thing, which is fine. But between the pandemic and then we saw the social justice uprising and then the election, I mean, it was just like one thing after another. Like I don't even want to say earthquake out loud, but I'm gonna say it because it's just like, what else can we get? And so it's been tough because living in LA, and I don't know how it is in Tucson or Albuquerque, but you see a lot of strife for the people in your city. There's been so many people who've been out of a job, can't pay their rent, can't pay their mortgage. And, for us in news, there's so much like job security because there's so much to talk about. But lately I've been thinking about the different stuff I've done over my life, between, we could have been in college at this time, right? And having to do virtual school, or like I could have still been teaching yoga and like needed to pivot online or have nowhere to teach, or in the live event award show world. And like, there's no such thing as live events right now. Yep. So it's just, it
was meant to be for you.
Really, really
where you are, totally meant to be.
Come on, champ. Come on up. She wants to make an appearance. So, it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride. It continues to be one, as we saw yesterday.
I'm sorry. I see your dog, and the only thing I can imagine her saying is, put me up on my lap and tell me I'm pretty.
Yeah, she's such a lap dog, as you can see. But she knows the word cute. Everybody tells her. And I guess she needs some love. So she feels, you feel awesome. Left out, Champy.
What part of LA are you living in?
So I'm now in Playa del Rey. Okay. So for those who might not know, I mean, it's close to LAX. It's on the coast. I'm about
just roughing it. Oh, you poor thing. Oh,
I'm
my
probably
goodness.
about, a little less than a mile, close to like Venice,
nice.
Not too far from Manhattan Beach. So, when I first moved here, really tough. I was in South Redondo Beach, which was awesome to live in the South Bay. And I could literally walk.
Yeah, it brought you back to your roots a little bit with Torrance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was really close to South High School. Used to like pass by it almost every day. So yeah, it was really cool to you mentioned full circle earlier, Brandon, and it's like, as I'm talking, it's like I'm finding full circles in like so many different places with the story.
Mike, do you want to hit her with a lightning round?
The lightning round.
Let's do this.
Yes.
So we are a little more relaxed when it comes to the lightning round. This is not like, give us your answer as soon as we ask you the question. So if you need a moment, yeah, we don't do that. We like to have more fun, because we find that if we give people a chance to talk, it actually, invokes more fun conversations. So it is lightning round, 10 questions, about as fast as you can answer them. And there's really no single topic. We went sort of all over the map, knowing what your background is and what your hobbies and that are. We sort of pulled from different things. So I'll just get this started. And question number 1, in the business, everybody has their go-to fast food restaurant when they are driving back to the station or they're in a rush to get somewhere. What is your go-to?
I would say In-N-Out, although I don't know how fast it ends up being, because there's always a freaking huge line, right?
You're making me more and more jealous the more you talk about where you live, where you're eating. Golly. It's a good thing I don't live by In-N-Out right now. I'd be like 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah, there's like two near me, so it's like, yeah. Anyway, In-N-Out for sure.
Well done.
Brandon, what's yours?
Well, if I was in California, it'd be In-N-Out. Yeah. But oh gosh, that's tough here. Blake's Burgers is, I'll give them a local shout out. That's a Albuquerque specific place. Good bacon cheeseburgers. Green chili burger is the big thing there. I don't really do chili.
Okay.
But let me get me real about it. Oh, it'd be Panda. It'd be anything Chinese. I don't know if that qualifies as fast food, but that's my favorite.
I think it does.
You know that. Yeah.
I'll
go Panda.
Panda Express, man.
I'll go Panda.
Panda is like a drive-through now, right? Then they're like super fast.
I live very close to one that has a drive-through. Yeah.
You single-handedly keep them in business?
Interesting.
That is correct.
I didn't know they had ones with drive-thrus. That's brilliant.
Oh, they're everywhere.
California does as much, but yeah, a lot of markets do.
Okay, clearly I'm not visiting Panda Express.
It's a good thing. It's not like it's that good for you.
No shame. I'm a Taco Bell go-to. Moving on to the next question. What's your favorite sports memory you've covered?
Oh, favorite sports memory. Well, okay, it's not something I covered, but I feel like it's ingrained in my brain because when I was interning, I must have been at Fox Sports Net. which is now FS1. I got to shadow Michael Eaves. He was a reporter. He's now at ESPN. But
dude, didn't we meet him at City Cable? Weren't you in the room when he came in?
Yes, right? That's where it was. I'm sorry, it was City Cable. It was City
dude.
Okay,
Michael Eaves now at ESPN. You know who
Yes.
you're talking about, right, Mike?
I believe so. I mean, I can't keep up with where everybody is, but I know I've heard that name several times.
Yeah. So he was he was doing sports here, and
he was at Fox Sports at the time.
Thank you. He was.
He's now at ESPN.
He was at Fox Sports, but you're right. It was at City Cable. So I got to shadow him at Dodger Stadium, and he introduced me to Vin Scully. And
oh God.
That was
so cool.
Just a moment like
so cool.
I'll never forget that, getting to go into the booth and say hello to him and have him actually acknowledge me and ask me maybe one question.
Yeah. What did he say to you?
I don't know, Brandon. I don't remember, but
you blacked out.
I totally blacked out. It was just like, you could hear his voice and the way he said my name. And it was just like, ah! So that was super cool.
That's awesome. Sort of staying with the stories you've covered, is there a story that became bigger than you thought it would? And this doesn't have to be sports. This could be anything that you've covered. Is there something that grew in a way that you thought, I can't believe that I'm actually covering this for whatever reason it was?
Oh man, that's a great question. I feel like I need to go through like the list of everything I've covered, but it had to be something this year. Like something with Corona or the George Floyd protests. Oh man, you guys have stumped me.
That's a tough one. Yeah, because that's like saying you got an assignment and then it blew up. It became like a viral thing. Like you haven't had anything like that yet?
I don't think so. I mean, I want to say it would have been like coronavirus. Like maybe I covered something sort of related to it. And like I guess this would be good. And related to that. So I remember the NCAA tournament decided they weren't going to have any fans in the stadium. And so my bosses called me at like 2 p.m., like, go to UCLA and find a fan and like, talk to them about the fact that there's not going to be any fans in the stands at March Madness. And that was huge, right? Like when that happened,
so that was like a couple of days before, maybe they just canceled it altogether.
That was, I think it was like March 12th or March 13th, because it was the 11th when the Utah Jazz canceled their game minutes before it started. And that was the first domino that got everything, that destroyed everything in sports.
Totally. So, it's funny. I was actually getting ready to go on a trip to Bali, Indonesia. I was supposed to leave on March 20th. And, the world starts shutting down. And even when I covered that story of no fans for the tournament, so the tournament was still happening, right? But there was just no fans. And even in that moment, I was like, God, I'm supposed to be leaving in like 10 days, but, this is kind of crazy. But I think it was like, when I did that story, it was like, damn, there's not going to be any fans. That's so crazy. And it was like, no, this shit can get crazier. And yes, it did.
And it did.
Yeah. This is my one begrudging story about 2020. At my work now, I get 3 weeks of parental leave when you have a kid. And my parental
leave. He's got 2 now, by the way.
2 kids now, but our youngest, like, my parental leave was lining up so that I was going to be off on the couch watching Pac-12 tournament and the first full weekend of March Madness, and nobody was going to disturb me.
What a coinkydink.
And then my life just crumbled. It fell apart.
Yeah, it's like, not so fast there, friend. Yeah, so I think that would be my answer, because, I think at that moment, it was just like, damn, that's crazy. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We didn't really know.
Yep. Okay. I penciled this one in as, because you and Brandon go back a ways, but I'm wondering, for the annals of Sports Amigo history to come, do you have any good, embarrassing Brandon Ortega stories?
Okay. Do we even get a chance to hang out outside of interning together? I think every time we hung out was either in the building or maybe we went to a shoot together.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy about, like getting to catch up with her, Mike, is that we spent very little time together, but we've stayed in touch through the power of social media. And yeah, she was nice enough to catch
I
up
don't
this
have
way.
any.
Nice
I
try,
feel
Mike.
like, Mike, you would have more stories than I could ever come up with.
I do.
I do.
It'd be a good one for you to ask him.
Oh man, yeah, there's so many. Put a guitar in that guy's hand. It doesn't matter where he is. He's gonna jam out to Foo Fighters every single time, and the dude slays too.
He's always loved Foo Fighters. I know that. Brandon, I have to tell you,
If you met Dave Grohl, I'm gonna punch my computer right now.
I didn't meet Dave Grohl, but I did get to do a story at his recording studio.
That's
Studio
606.
I said
not worthy. What was the angle?
So there's a local band here called Feed the Kitty, and they've been going at the dream for decades, right? And it was kind of a story about how like they haven't made it yet, but they've gone all in on their dream. And it's kind of the story of like, do you ever give up, even if you never make it? And so I got to do a story with them. They do a podcast, I got them at one of the local pubs, and then the past couple albums they've gotten to record at Studio 606. I forget like what the connection is there, but that's what's so cool about this job. Sometimes it was like just being in that space and like seeing what's on the walls, and you're just like, my God, like.
All right. So now for moving forward, if you go back to 606, I'm going to beg you to FaceTime me so I can just see it.
I'll send you that story or something, or see if I have some like behind the scenes.
I'll dig it up. I'll find that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Cool.
Feed the Kitty. That's what the band.
I probably did that last January, actually, just kind of in line with the Grammys, even though they weren't nominated for a Grammy. It was like doing like a local band's story. And, it's also like, the Grammys come around every year, maybe to some artists, like that's kind of their benchmark of like where they are in their career, whatever.
Super cool. Super cool.
Okay. So I know you have some background in screenwriting and your love of theater and acting and so on. But when it comes to the screenwriting part of it, do you have any tips or thoughts on what makes a good screenplay?
Well, that's really interesting. I'm not sure where you dug that up. I don't believe I have written for the screen, although could I be wrong? Have I just done so much I can't even remember?
Didn't you have like an internship with like that sort of stuff?
Freelance script writer, was that just news?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. Yes, I have done. Sorry.
That's how many things you've done. You're like,
in San Diego, I was lucky enough. I got to write, I got to write some scripts for brands with this production company who would like make commercials for them. So I got to maybe do like 3 of them. And that was like a really cool experience. I mean, I had never really, we write for broadcast and all that. But God, one of them was like for a site that was supposed to be like LinkedIn, but wasn't LinkedIn. But what was your initial question? Do I have any tips?
Yeah, like tips, like, because, we've talked so much about broadcast, like what makes a good, like in this case, like commercial script or brand script.
So I think like creativity is key, that was what was kind of cool about that, because you didn't have to be like so factual. Like, even though we'll put a little creativity into like scripts when you're anchoring, like you still got to stick to the facts or something's happening. I mean, with this, it was cool because it's all like up to your imagination. Like I knew like, okay, here's the product and here's what they're trying to get across. And it's like, now go. And I don't know, just really didn't have any fear with it. I mean, I hadn't done it like a ton. So there was a little fear with like, oh my God, does this suck? But like, I think that's what was cool. It was like just using your imagination and like flexing the creative writing skill.
In the world of yoga, I find this very interesting. There are so many unique names for the different positions, and it's stuff from like pensive lotus flower and all these random names that are supposed to represent certain things.
That's very a real deep one?
Meaning. I don't think it is, but like
probably is.
No.
Yeah, but they have like the names of some of these positions are interesting, And then you get to these like really like thoughtful names, and then you get to a position called downward facing dog.
Well,
Why?
I think it's really, if you have a dog,
I have two, yeah.
This one does a down dog and up dog every single day. It's like how she stretches. And so to me, like that's where whoever coined that. I mean, it's funny because, you know, everything derives from a Sanskrit term. And I think it's, oh man, Adho Mukha Svanasana is downward facing dog in Sanskrit. And so
say that one more time. What was that?
Adho Mukha Svanasana.
Well done. Wow.
It sounds so eloquent. And then the English translation is dog with his ass in the air.
Say it fast again.
Adho Mukha Svanasana. Adho Mukha Svanasana.
You're a pro. All right. Nice.
Yeah. I don't say it very often anymore. So it's like really interesting, but
still got it.
Yeah, I love it. So I think, you know, most of the postures derive from, you know, the Sanskrit, but then you do have some like really odd ones where like, and sometimes too, teachers, like you'll take a class somewhere and like some pose that somebody made up is like one thing. And then you go to another class and you're doing the same pose, but they call it something else. And I don't know, like sometimes I'm like, no, that's not a sparrow pose. That's just a chair pose where you lift your heels. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's really interesting. There's definitely been some westernized like changes to these postures.
I saw a post that you put on your Facebook page not too long ago about you at the movie theaters. And is it safe to say like that's one of your favorite personal like hobbies, things to do is go see movies when it's possible?
That was a cool story, by the way. The one that you did with the smaller theater, really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Man, I miss going to the movies. I do love going to the movies. And I really thought about it this, you know, kind of over the Christmas weekend, because that would be a time like I would go to the movies or, you know, obviously the weekends or whatever. And usually when the Oscars or like award show season's coming up, so like Golden Globes would be like this week. You know, so it's like going to the theater to see the stuff that's been nominated. And it is one of my favorite things to do. I think it's just like, you know, going to the big screen, and it's an experience and something I've done like my whole life. I think it's like one of the reasons why I was so inspired to want to, you know, get into acting initially. And I really do miss that. And it's been just, I mean, obviously we know this year's just been crazy. I mean, I don't know if they're open in Arizona or New Mexico, but they have not been open here in LA.
No,
they're really not. Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently they're open somewhere occasionally.
A couple of places, yeah.
Yeah.
So crazy. Yeah, I definitely miss going to the theaters. It is one of my favorite things to do.
I miss the movie popcorn more than anything.
Yeah, right. I mean, of course,
lather it in butter.
You have to. You have to. It's like the only way to eat it, or just like don't. But I feel like every time I'm at the movies and I'm like, I'm not gonna get the popcorn. It's like, you smell it, you're getting the popcorn. You just like it's all the experience. And so I definitely miss it. I do. I think the last movie I saw was Parasite in February.
Yeah, okay. I remember that.
In theaters. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, in theaters, yeah.
I love that you talked about like these great movies, and you know I love going to watch like the Oscar movies and catch up on that before all the award season comes in, because this next question is a hallmark of the lightning round. Favorite movie you are absolutely ashamed to admit?
I don't know if I should be ashamed.
Guilty
but
pleasure.
I'm sure the dudes would be like, I love Sex and the City, the movie.
That's not a guilty pleasure. You're a girl.
I know.
You get a pass on that.
But it's so many dudes, though. I love Sex and the City, the movie.
And that would be like, that would totally qualify for me, because I happen to like the show. I liked the show. I really liked the show a lot.
Show's great.
The movies not so much, but I didn't even see wasn't there 2 movies?
There was, and I actually never saw the second one, and most people are like, you don't even need to wait.
Because it got such bad reviews. But no, the first one
I loved. I've seen it a million times. Okay.
I get confused what's a movie, what's the show, because it's so long ago now. But I liked the show a lot. I mean, it was good.
Pleasure movie. I mean, it would have to be like a God, you guys have stumped me again.
It's a tough one.
Because you gotta like,
and especially for you got so many movies you like.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think, is there like some kid movie or something? Like
is there, I mean, like think of one that when you tell people you're hanging out with that you like, and they're like,
I'll throw, let me throw you this one because there are a few, but this is definitely one that I'll leave on, with the exception of like the last one, and the first one, because it was actually decent. The Transformer franchise is the one that I'm like, yeah, it's on. I'll keep it on in the background. And the 5-year-old in me loves robot monsters blowing each other up.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I've never seen one of those. Damn, I feel like I should be able to answer this, and I am like, I almost want to be like the Little Mermaid or something. I mean,
nah,
like
that's
such a classic. That can't be it.
No.
Champ, help me out here. I know we've watched stupid
Beverly Hills Chihuahua. That's what Champ would say.
Oh,
did you like that movie, Champ? She's looking at me like, come on.
Let's. I say we move on to the other to another one, but keep it in mind if another one comes up, let us know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Your favorite Boston sports memory?
Well, I actually, ironically, I went to Sonny McLean's today for a story, which is this big Boston pub here in Santa Monica.
Haven't you done a couple of stories there?
Yeah. So
yeah, I've seen the one you did a while back.
So a couple years ago, when the Pats and the Rams were going to the Super Bowl, and our station is like hyper local LA, they're like, we need to do all these Rams stories. And I'm like, ugh. You know what I think we should do? We should do a Patriot story because they are playing the Rams. And it's like the Pats have been in it so many times, as we know. And now they're playing LA. They're playing LA. And we should go to the Boston bar that is like, it's just crazy. You cannot get in there on Super Bowl. There are lines at 7:30 in the morning. Like people cannot get in. And my bosses were like, the only way you can do it is if you find someone who's born and raised LA, who's like a diehard Pats fan. And so I contact Sonny's and they're like, we got the person for you.
Well done. Yeah.
Sure enough. So
now obviously before COVID, were you frequenting that place? Were you going there like for fun on your own? But is that how you found out about it? Or did you just like word of mouth hear about it?
So I knew about it from a friend who now lives back in Massachusetts, and he used to go with his dad every Sunday. And like, it's also a place like you can't necessarily get in there because there's so many longtime regulars that like, or maybe you can get in there, but you can't get a seat because the longtime regulars have their booth, like it's waiting for them. And so I hadn't gone there very often, but I knew about it. I had been in there. And it's very like East Coast, it's totally that vibe. And so because I did that story,
I bet Bill Burr hangs out there.
I bet Bill Burr does. I was able to get in there for the Pats Rams Super Bowl.
Nice. Well, you did the story, so that should have earned you some good points there.
It was, but they had to like pull some strings, like with the door guys, like to get me in there. But it's like, no, you're getting me in there. And like,
I had the Roxbury or something.
Standing room only. But the moment, and that game, from what I remember, was pretty boring, right? Like, I think
like Patriots kind of kicked their butt.
Yeah.
Right?
More in the second half. I think like it was like a really like boring first half, but
low scoring first half. Yeah.
Yeah. When they won, that place erupted. And to see it and live it in person, because this is also a place where like the press goes when the Pats are in the Super Bowl in LA. Like LA Times is there. Cameras are trying to get in there. Like it is that place.
You were going there off the clock too? This is a day off for you?
Yeah. This is just, So to see that moment of eruption of fans winning the Super Bowl, I mean, I'm just so grateful that I got to be in there and see it because, now that the Brady era is over and we don't know what, obviously this year has been a lot different. And I joked with them today and I said, well, if COVID's going to kind of screw your business over, it might as well be a year that the Pats sucked. And he was, he laughed. He's just like, yeah, because Patriots fans and Boston fans, because they're so used to winning, like they're almost like I don't know if they're like poor losers, but like they won't show up anyway if they're having a bad year. So he was just like, it might as well have been this year. And so to kind of get that last Brady Super Bowl and they won, because I also can't imagine what that place is like when they're in the Super Bowl and they lose. I mean, it's like they had told me if they lose, everyone's going to be out of here immediately. If they win, they're going to be here all night. And so
a lot riding on that for them.
To get that final moment in that Super Bowl, that was everything, because the last time I saw Brady play was in the playoff game last year that they lost to the Titans. And that was just like a weird, I was at a different bar. Somebody was like kind of bothering me and my friend, just like taunting us that like, oh, Brady's going to go to the Chargers.
Yeah, and you're to the level, you're wearing your Pat stuff.
I'm wearing my Pat stuff. I'm just trying to watch the game and
Belichick hoodie.
The Belichick hoodie, yeah, cut off sleeves and everything. So it was I'm like trying to watch this game, like this could potentially be Brady's last game, and we got people taunting us about it. I mean, it was just like a kind of a weird, energetic vibe, and so that's really my favorite Boston memory, because I mean, the other Super Bowls, like when I was younger, that he was in it, I mean, I was like with my parents, like watching, so that was definitely like a moment that I'll never forget. And my sister was with me. It was cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
that was good. So now, like, you're living in LA, but I'm sure, like, with family and that still back east, do you get a sense of how depressing it is to be a Boston sports fan now, after basically they peaked in 2018 when they win the World Series and they win the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
the Celtics are still good though.
Yeah. They can't get to the finals, but yeah.
No.
Well, okay.
Doesn't mean they're bad.
I'm not like super into basketball, so I just feel like when it comes to Boston sports, although my boyfriend's a Celtics fan, so I feel like, God, man, I should have been a Celtics fan the whole time. But it's basically been like baseball and football for me. But it's been such a weird year to like even indulge in sports in a weird way. I think it's because of the events of COVID. I don't know, man. It's been weird. Even like I watched sports this year, of course, but it has just felt like everything is off its equilibrium. But I do sometimes wish that I've gotten to see some of these big moments with people on the East Coast. But it's cool because at least I had that moment at Sonny's. My sister's actually out here. She lives here. And so her and I have gotten to like experience some things together.
How old is she?
Would you say?
How old is she?
She's actually 25. Her and I are like 9.5 years apart.
Ooh.
We are, my little sis. And so
what does she do?
She works in like private equity research. Like she's totally like the finance, different side of the brain kind of person.
So she doesn't have to hustle and grind as much as Big Sis did.
No, not as much.
More stable stuff. Okay.
Yeah, she does want to be like an entrepreneur and like have her own business and stuff. So there is a sense of hustle in that way. But like, yeah, totally two different like paths.
Super cool. That's super cool. She's out there with you though. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, that's been cool for us to like, kind of, enjoy those moments together, especially in sports. But, I just feel like for myself, like at least this past year, there was such a long period of time where there was no sports. And then it's like you had all the sports, but I'm also like out, so COVID focused. I don't know. It's just been strange.
I think what's weird for me is there is no sense of anticipation like there was before COVID, because you can't look at a schedule and say, I get to circle this date on the calendar. There's none of that. I mean, you don't know if even, and the NFL has done such a good job. Like, you don't know if their game is going to go off. We don't know if the playoffs are actually going to, go off with this kind of hitch. Is the Super Bowl even going to be played on time? Or are we going to have to wait a month for that? But I think that's been the most frustrating part. Is I love getting excited and see the buildup for those kinds of games.
I agree. Totally agree. Is that it for the lightning round?
That was all 10 questions.
Oh my
10 questions, 10
you
answers.
Busted through it. Well done.
You did. That was good stuff too.
Oh my goodness, you guys. That was so fun.
It was that's exactly what we want it to be. It's just fun. We shoot the stuff with each other and just laugh hysterically at times.
The lightning round.
Congratulations and welcome to the fraternity sorority that is the Sports Amigos lightning round.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, 3 out of the last 4 guests have been ladies. So yeah, you're the third lady we've had on.
Sports Amigas.
Thank you. Yeah, Sports Amigas up in the business. This was so much fun. Oh my goodness. Like we talked about, we haven't seen each other in person in a decade. But you know, but through good old Facebook and social media, you know, we've got to keep tabs on each other a little bit. And I mean, I know I told you on the phone a week or 2 ago, but I mean, I am just so happy for you, for everything, you know, you went through to get where you are. You know, you're living the dream, and I'm pumped, and you're going to do it as long as you want. It's you know, it's a matter of what you want to do. You know, if that acting bug comes back and you start jumping into that, that's the only reason I could see you getting out of this. I mean, you're doing so well.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you asked me to come on. And, you know, it's like I said in the beginning, sometimes you're in your own stuff so much that you kind of forget like everything that you did. I mean, thank you for reminding me that I did a little bit of writing. That's right.
Nice. Well, I think this is a good point to raise the cups or the glasses, the wine glasses. And you are officially a certified Sports Amiga. Welcome. And we'll do it again sometime.
We will.
Thank you guys. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.